All right, so this is Won by the Sword, and I'm playing the very first campaign, or at least the first 3 turns. There is a 1632 year-long campaign, and if you want to play a shorter version of it, you can play Battle Scenario Crossing of the Lech, which is pretty much what I've been playing as I'm learning the system and pushing things around. And I gotta say, the balance on it's pretty remarkable. I just finished up the last turn here. We start off in February, winter turn, 2 full spring turns, and the land's getting pretty well ravaged from all the foraging. So it's getting harder to maintain large armies in the area that we've been fighting over principally, which has been the fortresses of Ulm, Augsburg, Munich, which canceled that siege, and also Nuremberg, which has changed hands a couple of times. Had 2 major battles in those 3 months, and I gotta say, I love how the major battles play out. It's not just, you know, putting guys on the display and chucking dice. There's actually some tactical movement that you can do as you're trying to determine how you're going to win this battle. So the battles, even though this is fought in the operational level, it's going to have a tactical feel for it. You end up putting all of your cavalry on the left and right wings. So the attacker does it first, then the defender, so you get to see which player has the most. And then from there, then the attacker can make some changes. He can take half of his cavalry and reposition them either to the left or over to the right. You can also take half of your infantry from the center and shift them either left or right to try to make up the deficits. The key thing is you're going to do the cavalry fights first, and whoever scores the most hits in that wing is going to win that section of the battlefield. To win the battle, you got to win 2 sections. If you clear the table and win all 3, that's a major victory. And so when you win the cavalry battle, then you're surviving cavalry after imposing all the hits, and bear in mind, these can be pretty bloody fights. The cavalry that's left over can then participate on your side in the center. So if each side wins a wing, it's going to really come down to what happens here. If you win 2 wings, well, if you don't have a whole lot of infantry, that might be enough to make up the difference and clear the table and win that center part of the battle. So it's really kind of cool how those all work out. In this particular battle, or in this particular 3-month battle scenario, King Gustavus won a battle and lost a battle. He fought a battle and won against Tilly and the Bavarians, badly mauling their army near Nuremberg. Then, 2 months later, fought a major battle against Wallenstein, who was besieging Nuremberg, and that was a very hard-fought, very close battle, but ended up Gustavus lost that battle, and it badly messed up his army. Well, after he loses a major battle, then you get some reinforcements. So a bunch of Swedish reinforcements come in. That changes the balance of power a little bit. So Wallenstein, his army has been pretty badly mauled. They're all half strength, and or they're down 1 step, I should say. The Imperials, when they've taken a step loss, most of them don't lose any strength value. So they have a little bit more staying power. However, it's a pretty brittle army. You can't really afford to fight another major engagement, and you really need some reinforcement event in order to stabilize his army. So instead of engaging the Swedes, they just ravaged the heck out of Franconia in order to make it very difficult for the larger Swedish armies to maintain any kind of presence in there. Use cavalry to really to just hinder any kind of forward progress and try to keep them out of Nuremberg. Meanwhile, the Imperial army under Wallenstein besieged Ulm and came within a whisker of taking it, and didn't quite finish the job. That turned out to be a really important thing because the Swedish player was holding on to a surprise attack card, which allows you to assault a fortification without completing the siege. Now, it can be pretty bloody, but it's worth it. So he ends up taking Nuremberg back from the Imperials, and so that changes the balance on the victory track quite a bit. That's a 20-point swing. So now the Swedes are only down a few points on the track. They're very close to closing the gap. All they got to do to win the scenario is take this fortification away. And so they, on their final card play, I think it was Torstensson moved in on one of the fortified towns here, and basically he's not going to have enough time to do a siege in that 6-day time period. Each one of these card rounds is like a 6-day period. And so he's not going to have enough time to make progress on siege, but he can intimidate the fortification and maybe they surrender without a fight. He's got a reasonable shot at it. Call it a 50-50 shot with his supports. And unfortunately for him, he doesn't have enough. He doesn't roll high enough to get that. And so at the end of the day, the Imperials are going to win the scenario. So one of the things that you'll do at the end is you'll take, for each of the regiments that are in the cadre box from your casualties, every one of those is going to be worth -1/2 of a victory point. So we basically take the number of regiments in here, have that number, that's how many victory points the Swedes lose, that's how many points the Imperials lose. And when all that's factored in, had the Swedes taken that, they would have won by 1 point. It would have been a very, very close fight, but they would have won the scenario by 1 point. As it is, they lose it by, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. So really, really cool scenario. Had a lot of fun with this. I think the system has a lot of potential. Are there issues with the rules? Well, the only rule that I've had any issues with has been the siege procedures, but I think I got it figured out. It just employing common sense. I think I understand how it's supposed to work. That you spend your command point to open the siege, and you spend a baggage point or supplies to open that siege. But once the siege is open, on future goes, you can do a construct siege works operation activity. And so you don't have to spend baggage points every time you want to increase the siege value. The rulebook could really use some examples of play for sieges. You're going to be doing a lot of them. And so it's unfortunate that I have questions about something that's going to happen a lot. But again, like just applying common sense, I think I've got it figured out. It seems like it's working. The game seems quite balanced. It's definitely fun to play. And there's so much that can happen. It's like every single month, you're going to get a whole new section of 10 cards, and then you start planning a whole new campaign. These different ravaged points, I forget what you call these things, these different ravaged tokens that are going to be placed down on the board. Once they get to level 2, you can't gather any kind of baggage from those areas anymore, so it's getting harder and harder to maintain armies. Well, one of the things that happens is when you transition, like we're just moving in now to May, is when, if we were continuing the campaign, it would go there. Nothing's going to happen to any of those markers. They're going to stay on there. But once you pass over into a new season from spring into summer, then what will happen is all of the level 1 tokens go away, level 2s flip over. Now, you can get forage results that'll give you baggage points without flipping those markers, but you have to roll within a certain threshold to do that. More often than not, the more baggage points you get, the more that it's going to ravage the countryside and make it harder for you to maintain your army in that area for very much longer. So you're constantly having to move your armies and be mindful of that. So that becomes something of a strategy. You know, that was one of the things the Imperials were doing to make it hard for the Swedes to get reacquire possession of Nuremberg, was to basically ravage Franconia, make it impossible for them to maintain armies there. That also serves as a shield for protecting Bavaria. And they've been very effective at that. Now, the Swedes got access to one of the 2 cards that are in the whole deck that allow them to do what they did there. But they're not going to be able to move through this country and invade Bavaria in any meaningful fashion, at least until summer. So if the game were to continue, I kind of see the action kind of shifting down into Württemberg and over into Baden as both sides try to make up some points by taking each other's fortifications and working against each other in areas where the land can sustain their armies a bit better. So lots of fun in this one, lots of stuff to explore. This is Won by the Sword. Hope you enjoyed the video.